What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Go Talk with Marcus, powered by Poddex, fueled by Goat Fuel. Once again, joining the show is Emmitt Sevores, C Team Pod, and the Boelt. What's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. I know we started at least today a little late. Started a little late, but it's early over here on the West Coast. It's early.
It is. So it's all good. Thank you for coming back on the show. To talk some Raiders. This is episode 22 of 32. So you got 10 more episodes after this.
Wow.
The NFL offseason series. This is also episode 51 of season 2.
Oh wow.
That happened real quick. If you missed any of the other previous 50 episodes of the show, you can check them out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or YouTube. If you've missed specifically any of the other previous 21 episodes of this NFL offseason series, you can find them all in the exact same place. So let's talk some Raiders football. I've been getting a lot of heat lately, and I don't care. I'll die on it. I've been saying that Dak Prescott's better than Lamar Jackson. I firmly believe that. I'll die on that hill. What's interesting to me, though, is that apparently people find it more aghast that I have Dak over Lamar than me having Derek Carr over Lamar Jackson. I think that's pretty interesting. For those guys that don't know, Dak Prescott's in my top 10. He's number 9. Derek Carr's number 10. Lamar Jackson's number 11. Apparently, that's just outright blasphemous, because according to the decision makers on Twitter, Lamar's mobility just completely negates anything that Derek Carr or any of the other 10 guys I have ahead of Lamar Jackson can do as a quarterback. But we can talk about that another time, and we will talk about that another time very, very soon, actually. Is Derek Carr top 10 quarterback, Emmitt?
He's right there. He's about as close as any quarterback is. He's in that same tier as the Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Kirk Cousins. He's right in that tier where honestly, if I saw him placed anywhere from, probably 10 to 14, I think he'd be in the right spot. But for me, I have him at 10. I have Aaron Rodgers as the best quarterback in the league. Then you go to Mahomes. I think you go Josh Allen. Then you go Brady. That's the top 4. Then as you kind of go down, then I think you got to go to a guy like Matthew Stafford, Russell Wilson. Then Joe Burrow is probably right there. Justin Herbert. Crap. The more I'm looking at it, the more I'm realizing I left people out. You know what? I'm going to change my argument mid sentence. No, he's not. He's not a top 10 quarterback.
You don't think
I'm going
so?
to change it. I'm going to change it mid. I realized that I forgot a lot of people, especially when you have to put him up against some of these younger quarterbacks. And just like looking inside of his division, he's the worst quarterback in his division, and that's not even a diss to say the least.
That's not a bad thing. It's really stacked division.
It's not a bad thing, but it's not a good thing. That's automatically 3 quarterbacks that you're going to put ahead of Derek Carr.
Sure.
So that's 3 right there. Then obviously Rodgers and Brady you're going to put ahead of him. That's again no slack there, or there's nothing bad about that. So bam, now he's all the way down to 6. Josh Allen I think is better. Then you look at I think Joe Burrow is better. I'm Deshaun Watson when he's going to be playing. Obviously we don't know what he's at right now, but I think Deshaun Watson is going to be a better quarterback when he comes back and is playing. I do think that's true, and because the last time we did see him, he was a better quarterback than Derek Carr, and I don't think that's very like super duper offensive to say. Then you start getting into those that tier of like Dak Prescott and Lamar Jackson, and I have Dak Prescott ahead of him, but I don't have Lamar ahead of him. I think again he's in that range. He's still in that borderline range where I don't think it's not super. It's not bad to say he's a top 10 quarterback, but I just don't think he is. I think that there's way too many young, talented guys mixed with your older veterans like a Rodgers, like a Brady, like a Stafford and Wilson, where it's just very hard to, put him ahead of those guys.
Derek Carr's a top 10 quarterback. He's 10th. So like he just makes the cut. Here's the thing, and I want an honest answer because no one answers my question. So now I want you to answer my question because And look, we haven't had this conversation. I just need an answer because I keep asking this question and no one gives me an answer. They want to list stats and O-line and wide receivers, all this other nonsense. Trust me, by this time next week, people, I will have an answer. Also, next week, 2 years ago, talk by the way. Aside from mobility, what does Lamar Jackson do better than Derek Carr or Dak Prescott? I want to know because I've spent almost a month now, and they started back with Steezy on Twitter. Yep. Almost a month now defending this take, and no one gives me an answer. They want to talk about MVPs. They want to talk about injury. They want to talk about the fact that, oh, well, you know, the Baltimore doesn't invest in the O-line and the wide receivers. Yeah, newsflash. They've never done that. They thrive on defenses. Some of the greatest defenses in the history of football come from the Baltimore Ravens organization. Here's the thing. First of all, I think that loyalty is a little bit overrated. Not just in basketball, but like in everything, right? I think that saying I feel the same way about Deebo Samuel. I don't think Deebo Samuel is a top 15 wide receiver. I get slack for it, whatever. If you take away what he does in the backfield, are you gonna take Deebo Samuel ahead of guys like Terry McLaurin and DK Metcalf and AJ Brown? Personally, I wouldn't. Derek Carr is a top 10 quarterback to me, and the reason why is because Derek Carr does everything that you want a quarterback to do at a good to great level, right? He is an accurate passer. He is really reliable down the stretch of football games. He is in the upper echelon of quarterbacks active today and all time, but active today as it pertains to comeback drives and game winning drives. Like that is what that he's very good at. That he makes good decisions. He doesn't turn the ball over often. Like he's like everything he's a fantastic leader. We saw that last season with the ups and downs that Las Vegas went through the course of the season. Like everything that you want from a quarterback, Derek Carr does, and he does it at a really high level. And I think, unfortunately, similarly to the way I felt about Matt Stafford while he was in Detroit, similarly to the way that I felt about Atlanta or Matt Ryan while he was in Atlanta, I think because Derek Carr is in Las Vegas and because the Vegas Raiders haven't had the most success in recent memory, and because of the fact that when you look at just the quarterbacks in his Derek Carr is not the sexiest quarterback, right? He's not the shiny new toy. He doesn't got the deep cannon for the arm and the behind the back and the no look passes, and he's not gonna, scramble around the backfield for 35 seconds and then heave it 70 yards down the field for a game-winning touchdown. That's not what Derek Carr does, but he's still a really, really, really good quarterback. And I think Derek Carr's the 10th best quarterback in football. I take Derek Carr over Kirk Cousins. I take Derek Carr over Jimmy G. I take Derek Carr over Matt Ryan. I take Derek Carr over Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray. He's 10th. And you're right. He's not the best quarterback in his division, but I mean, come on. When you're in a division with Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and Russell Wilson, I mean, being the fourth best, Derek Carr would be the best quarterback, I think, in half the divisions in football. I think. Well, I know.
I think he'd at least be second. He'd at least be
sure.
second.
Derek Carr. I think Derek Carr has had an unfortunate string of luck, right? Because Derek Carr started his career and it was rough, but it was like they were improving. And in 2016, he leads them to the playoffs, even though he missed games due to injury and he was kind of in and out of the line due to injury. But like they had a really good season, but he was hurt and they made the playoffs. We didn't get to play in the playoffs. And then ever since then, it's just kind of been trying to get back to that. And he finally got back to that last season, but like, despite that, he's a career 65%. He completes a career 65% of his passes. He's had now 4 consecutive seasons with 4,000 yards. He had last season, he had almost 5,000. He had 4,800. Like, he has been progressively getting better over his career. And he is one of the most reliable quarterbacks in the NFL, not just with throwing touchdowns, but also as it pertains to taking care of the football. I will die on this hill. I am slightly shocked that I get more slack for saying that Dak Prescott's better than Lamar Jackson than I do about saying that Derek Carr is better than Lamar Jackson. I assumed it would kind of be the other way around. Listen, here's the thing. I think that Dak Prescott right now, when you talk about pro comp, is a younger version of Derek Carr, except he's slightly more mobile, right? Like, but everything that Derek Carr can do, Dak Prescott can do. I think Dak Prescott's a little bit more careful with the football, right? He has a stronger arm and he's obviously more mobile, but the two are exactly the same. So I'm glad that you answered my question. because no one's answered my question. So thank you for finally answering the question. And if you don't think Derek Carr's top 10, at least he'll look like a top 10 quarterback because he's got the best wide receiver in football now.
He does.
Adams, his former college teammate back at Fresno State. What is Davante Adams' impact on this offense? Because you're right, Derek Carr's the fourth best quarterback in this division, but the Raiders might have the second best offense in this division, though.
Yeah, and I think that, our next two topics kind of tie in together. Whether, Davante Adams' impact has a lot to do with what Josh McDaniels' scheme is going to be. Because I don't think this isn't an offense where you're necessarily going to, just go out five wide, all like, Cliff Kingsbury, five wide like Madden. You're not just going to completely just do all that. You can't. Yeah. Especially because I don't think, especially when you look at the receiver core, I don't think that they don't really have like a big speed guy. They really don't. They have Davante Adams, they have Hunter Renfrow, Demarcus Robinson, and then as you look, further down the depth chart, it just doesn't it's not super duper impressive. Obviously, Darren Waller at tight end, and man, speaking of getting heat, I was getting heat, and I don't know if you've seen this take of mine before. I don't think this is like too hot of a take. I was getting a lot of heat for saying that Darren Waller isn't in the same tier as Travis Kelce and George Kittle.
He's not. They're in a tier by themselves.
Thank you. Raiders fans were upset.
See, this is why I don't like this. I'm glad you mentioned that. This is why I don't like sports. I'll be honest. I've been doing this for. We're recording this on Tuesday. This will come out on Wednesday. So a week from today will be 2 years I've been doing this. I hate sports Twitter sometimes, and I hate sports TikTok. I really do, because I think it goes back. There are 10 people in my life that I'm extremely loyal to, and that's it. Like, I'll do it. I'm not, listen, in the world of sports, there's really only two guys that I have undying loyalty for. It's LeBron James, it's Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is my quarterback, and LeBron James is the GOAT, in my opinion. That's it. Like, I don't really, like, let's be honest, okay? Like, I'll be honest. Like, DeAndre Hopkins, right now, not top 15 in my estimation. He hasn't really been the same since he had that season of no drops. Very hot take, but if you look at the stats and look at how he's fallen off and look at a lot of young receivers and how they've all kind of come up, that's not a crazy thing to say, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever. I agree with you, but that's not an insult because he's still the third best tight end in football.
No,
so
and
they never want to listen to the whole take. Like, I say Darren Waller's not on the same tier as Travis Kelce and George Kittle, but then I say he's the third best tight end in football.
Yeah. No, it's like the exact same thing as calling Derek Carr the worst quarterback in the division.
It's a fact. You're not going to take Derek Carr over Pat Mahomes. You're not going to take Derek Carr over Justin Herbert. It's close a little bit, and that's going to sound crazy. I think the smallest gap is Russ to Derek Carr, and I think that's just because Russ is going to be, at least what it looks like this season, Russ is going to be in a new system. There are things that Russ is going to be asked to do that might not play into his strengths a little bit in Denver, which is why I'm not all hell bent on saying that they're going to the Super Bowl. But, like, you'd still take Russ over Derek Carr. I'd say by a little bit. The gap isn't as glaring as it once was. Don't get me wrong. Russ is still in his prime. He is.
Yeah.
But Russell Wilson, whether you want to admit it or not, Russell Wilson hasn't been Russell Wilson.
No.
Not including this past season, obviously, because he missed like 75% of the season due to injury. But when you think about Russell Wilson, obviously, he has to, but like there are just things that we saw during the Legion of Boom era when they were like consistently going to championship games and being a force to be reckoned with, not just in the NFC, but in football, that like Russ has shown moments, but he hasn't been that. And it's not that Russ is bad. Russ isn't declining, but I don't think the gap is as large as people make it seem. I think that's my issue with my Dak Prescott thing I'm not going to argue with you that Lamar Jackson's not better than Dak. Like, that's your opinion. You have every right to think that. I mean, that Lamar's got the MVP, like whatever. But don't sit here and tell me that what I'm saying is completely unfathomable. Like, they have the same postseason record. Dak Prescott's thrown for more total yards as far as passing yards. He's thrown for more touchdowns. He's thrown for less interceptions. He's got a higher completion rate. He's got a higher QBR. Like, the only statistical categories in which Lamar Jackson leads Dak Prescott by a lot is rushing. And that's because that's what he does. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I hate sports Twitter sometimes. I really do. That's not a crazy thing. I agree with you.
No.
When
Yeah.
I saw this thing the other day, and it's
here. I'm gonna grab a water. I'm listening to you.
yeah.
I'm gonna mute myself. I'm gonna grab a water.
I swear to you, one of the most interesting things is that when you think about Travis Kelce in fantasy football, since he's been Travis Kelce, and I think Travis Kelce's been in the league since like 2014 or 2015 or something. Travis Kelce has been tight end 1 in fantasy football for like the last 8 years. And Travis Kelce has not been tight end one time. That was last season. I don't know who was tight end 1 in fantasy football, but like 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, he's been tight end 1 fantasy football. He wasn't tight end 1 in fantasy football last season. I can't think off the top of my head who it is. Like really great, phenomenal tight end. I think he is the second best tight end in football. George Kittle is the most all-around tight end in football today. He can pass block, he can run block. His routes are crispy. He can run every route on the route tree as if he's a wide receiver, and I think he's the best route running tight end in football today. Like he's really, really good. He's really, really good at what he does. The only thing is he's kind of been dealing with injuries, especially the last couple seasons. Travis Kelce has not. Like Travis Kelce plays every game of the season, except for 2016, 2017, and 2020, and that's because by the last week of the season, they had clinched the number 1 seed in the conference, and they rested all their starters. But no, Darren Waller's not in the same tier as George Kittle and Travis Kelce because they're 1 and 2, and he's 3. That's
exactly
not a crazy. I mean, I don't get it. I mean, I don't get it. Like,
I don't either. But back to our guy Davante Adams, or our former guy Davante Adams.
He's still my guy. That is another guy I have undying loyalty for. I'll never
he's
about Davante ever.
It pains me to see him in that that black and silver. I hate it so much. But I think Davante Adams isn't going to have as good of a season statistically as everyone thinks he's going to have. I think that there is going to have to be, and he said it himself, and he went back and he clarified his Hall of Famer comments about, he went back and he clarified that. But what he meant to say, or what he said he meant to say, is that even if you're going from Hall of Famer to Hall of Famer, there is going to be some sort of adjustment period. It's going to take him a little bit. And I realized that Derek Carr's his guy, and they were together in college, but this is the pro level. They haven't played together since 2013.
That's true. I do think though that unlike most, when you talk about like you're seeing a lot of movement, like you've seen now Juju and MVS go to Kansas City, you've seen Tyreek Hill go to Tua, and whoever's paying Tyreek Hill to say the things he's saying about Tua, just
it's the Dolphins. You see, they signed because I would say wild things.
I don't think Tyreek believes half the things he said about most accurate quarterback in the NFL. Stop it. Let's just stop it. But when you see a lot of the one thing that, because you're right, they haven't played together since 2013, but I think the one thing that works in that favor though is that there is some type of chemistry there because they have played together, right? Yeah. So when you talk about like one of the reasons why we looked at Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow and was like, wow, this is great. It's because, well, I mean, granted, the layoff wasn't that long. There was only one season, but they still had that chemistry from college and it still existed, right? Like one of the reasons why, and I don't know why, but there are Packers fans out there that really enjoy Randall Cobb being back. I get it. There's the chemistry from eons ago with Cobb and Rodgers, but like I love Randall Cobb, but he's not the answer. I think that works in their favor because unlike most new pairings that we're going to see in the NFL, they already have some form of chemistry because they did play together. They did play together in college, so they know each other. But they're like, I just wish he wasn't in Las Vegas though.
It's so tough. But like the other part of it really is like, I mean, you saw the chemistry that he was building up, that Derek Carr was building up with Hunter Renfrow. And Hunter Renfrow and Davante Adams are very similar receivers in terms of what their strengths are. Mm-hmm. They're both good route runners. They're both going to kill you with their release. They're not going to, they're not going to show off a great amount of speed, and they have good hands. They're very similar receivers.
Hunter Renfrow's hands are so underrated, dude.
They are. No, he's one of those guys who I think, had they not traded for Davante Adams, was really going to take that, like, no doubt top 10 stuff.
I was prepared to, I'm not going to lie to you. I think Hunter Renfrow is top 10. Again, I can't say that too loud because then I'll get heat. Oh my God, what? Whatever. Shut up. I was prepared to come on my show for the season and say that Hunter Renfrow was going to be a dark horse to win Offensive Player of the Year because he's the best slot receiver in football.
I don't think that's crazy to say.
Half of their wide receiver depth chart last season got cut either because they were in jail or close to being in jail, which I mean sucks for them, I guess. But he's the best slot receiver in football, and he's also like their number one receiver. So like he plays the slot, but he also plays the outside, and it was really. But I was prepared to say that if there's one guy to look out for Offensive Player of the Year, would have been Hunter Renfrow because Hunter Renfrow played phenomenal football for them, especially in that postseason game. I know it didn't end the way they wanted it to against Cincinnati wild card weekend, but he played really good football for them. Especially in the backstretch of the season altogether, like as they were kind of pushing to the playoffs and all that stuff. You're right though. I don't think Davante Adams will get he'll get the lion's share of the targets, obviously, because he is wide receiver one. But it won't be exactly like Green Bay because Darren Waller is better than Robert Tonyan, obviously. You've got Hunter Renfrow, who is a much more reliable number two than Allen Lazard was last season. Josh McDaniels is coming from a Bill Belichick system, and they like to run the football. Josh Jacobs is going to run the ball. The one thing, though, is Josh Jacobs hasn't really been utilized as a threat out of the backfield receiving a lot. That could change. It could stay the same. You've got Kenyon Drake as well. It looks the same because once you get past 1 and 2, there's not much, which is what everyone said about Green Bay, except that just wasn't the case. But he's not going to get a lion's share of the targets, but his targets are going to matter. I think his impact is such that his presence on the field will open things up a lot more for Darren Waller. They'll open things up a lot more for Hunter Renfrow. They'll open things up a lot more as far as the play action game and as far as the running game, RPOs, all that great stuff. Again, Josh McDaniels, this is his second time around the track as far as trying to get this head coaching thing together. He failed the first time miserably. I mean, then again, I think he ended up in Detroit, and it's Detroit. You're gonna fail when you go to the Detroit Lions. So take it with a grain of salt. Mike, does Josh McDaniels' head coaching does he affect their chances of being a really good football team this season? Because on paper, this is a really good team offensively, potentially top 10. It's a potentially top 10 defense, I think, by the end of the season. I don't have them ranked top 10 right now, but I think they could get into the top 10 as the season progresses because they definitely were on that trajectory as the season was winding down on the back half of the season last season as they were pushed to the playoffs. I feel like, though, that maybe Josh McDaniels as a head coach could be the hindrance of what this team could be.
No, and I agree with you. I mean, starting off, like I think there is generally the thought that a second time head coach is going to do better than they did the first time because they're going to be able to go in, they're going to learn, they're going to do a bunch of this stuff, and especially if you look at Josh McDaniels when he was the head coach for Denver, all of that. You're not going to win a whole lot of games with Tim Tebow as your quarterback. It's just not going to happen. And so while I don't think it was all on him, I think that he definitely had some room to improve. And I was honestly kind of shocked that he took this job with the Raiders. I understand, again, it's going to be a city where a lot of players are going to be attracted to come there free agent wise. It's the Raiders. It's a huge football brand. They're not even in the same city that they were in when Davante Adams was growing up, and Davante Adams still wanted to go and play for him. They're going to have money.
It's even more attractive because it's Vegas instead of Oakland.
Exactly. But I just don't trust Josh McDaniels, man. I really don't. I mean, I watched that offense last year with Mac Jones, and were you impressed?
I was impressed with Mac Jones.
I was impressed, but were you impressed with the offense itself? No.
I was not impressed with the offense. I'll be honest. I wasn't. I was impressed with Mac Jones. I was impressed with Kendrick Bourne. Ramondre Stevenson, I think, would have been a 1,000-yard rusher last season if he played the entire season.
But I think
the offense wasn't that. But I think maybe that has to do with the fact that they were just so bereft of weapons. Like, it's possible that this offense this season does much better because you've got a better quarterback, you have better wide receiver, you've got a much better tight end, you have a better O-line. Like, everything's better offensively in Vegas than it is in New England, and maybe that works in their favor. Josh McDaniels just gives me a cause for pause because the last time we saw him on the sideline wasn't good. Wasn't pretty. Which brings us to, I think, an important question because this is a stacked division, right? All four teams could find themselves, into the postseason. Are the Raiders going to be the worst in the West this season?
They're not going to like me. I crapped on Darren Waller. I called Derek Carr a not top 10 quarterback, and now I'm going to say that they're going to finish last in their division. I said it the second the Davante Adams trade happened, and I got a lot of crap for this one too. I said that the trade for Davante Adams was a lose-lose for both teams. The Raiders aren't going to be winning any Super Bowls. The Packers aren't going to be winning any Super Bowls.
We're not.
And so I think that in the short run, at least, it didn't help out either team. It significantly hindered Green Bay's chances of getting a Super Bowl. But I think you look at their schedule, and they're going to have a rough schedule because they're playing the AFC, or sorry, they're playing obviously their own division in the AFC West. They're playing the NFC West as well. And then I believe the division that they're playing the AFC South, which I think can be okay with Tennessee and Indianapolis. Jacksonville and Houston are going to be very easy games for this team. But you look, and then they also play. I'm trying to see who their one NFC team. They play New Orleans as well, and I think New Orleans is going to be a sleeper team in the AFC or in the NFC. Yeah. You look through this, and how many games do they have the better quarterback? They have the better. They don't have the better quarterback when they're playing Justin Herbert twice, Mahomes twice, or Denver twice. So there's 6 games where they don't have the better quarterback. Then you start looking, and Los Angeles, I have Stafford over him. I think that's probably where it ends. I think they probably have it in the most, or the better quarterback in the rest of those games. Then you look at the head coaching battle, and I think it's a very similar thing there. Obviously, Andy Reid's better. Obviously, Sean McVay's better. Bill Belichick's better. Bill Belichick's the reason that Josh McDaniels has this job. I'm going to take Kyle Shanahan as well. I think Mike Tomlin's a better coach. Just looking at it, I'll say that Josh McDaniels is a better coach than Pete Carroll, but I have an undying hate for Pete Carroll, so I could even be wrong on that one as well. Then you look, I think Frank Reich is probably better. I think it's way too early. Obviously, we haven't even seen Nathaniel Hackett call a play, so I'm just going to give Josh McDaniels the edge on that one. But I'm a Brandon Staley guy. Like, I think that there's going to be a couple of games that they're going to get out coached, and they do have the better roster. And again, this isn't one of those things where I think that they're just going to be an absolutely horrible team this year, because I think you can't have that loaded of a roster with, bringing in, they were already a playoff team, and then they brought in Davante Adams, and they brought in Chandler Jones. You're not going to be a team you'll have a worse record, but you're not going to be a worse football team. I think that you're looking, they're probably going to finish last in this division. And it's going to be so tough because they could just as easily, every team in this division could split. You could see every team go 3-3 in their division, and then it's up to how they do against the NFC West, and the AFC South. It really is something like that. And I think, as we talked about earlier, quarterbacks I'm trusting in that division, I think Derek Carr comes last. That's not a bad thing. That just means that when my money's on the table, I mean, we both saw that, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes playoff game last year. We watched them go back and forth, and that's what heavyweights look like. And I don't think Derek Carr's
he's not a
heavyweight like that. He's not a heavyweight like that.
I think that maybe a lightweight.
Yeah. And again,
I don't know what bantam is, but maybe, I don't know.
I think bantamweight's the lowest. I think
he's not a bantamweight. He's not a bantam. He's a light heavyweight, middleweight. Listen, the Broncos fans that are going to watch this aren't going to like this. I think the Broncos are going to finish last in the division. I think the writing's on the wall. I think it all depends on Russ. I think Russell Wilson is one of 5 quarterbacks that if I had to list quarterbacks under the most pressure, he would be on that list. Russell Wilson, and Seahawks fans will say, oh, it's the offensive line, and oh, it's Pete Carroll. No, Russell Wilson holds onto the ball for too long. Like, that is, there are a lot of reasons why, you get sacked, right? It's, bad offensive line. You're not picking up the blitz. One of them is also that you just hold on to the ball for too long. Russell Wilson holds on the ball way too long. Given that we got to see what a Nathaniel Hackett called offense looks like for what has it been, 2 years now, 3 years now? One of the reasons why Aaron Rodgers was so successful, aside from the fact that he's that great, and I don't understand why. I don't even want to get into that. But aside from the fact that he's just that good, is Aaron Rodgers makes very quick decisions and he gets the ball out of his hands very quickly, whether it's to a receiver or to throw it away. He's going to get the ball out of his hands very quickly. Russell Wilson doesn't do that. That could be the undoing of this offense. I have been very consistent all season, and I will say it again for Steezy and anyone else that's listening that thinks I hate the Broncos or I think that the Broncos are going to suck. I don't think the Broncos are going to suck. What I do think, though, is that when you overhaul an entire coaching staff and when you bring in a new quarterback, sure, the defense will be fine on paper, but it's going to be a new defensive system. This would be a team that is leaning offense, not leaning defense. When you got a DC and a defensive-minded head coach, that team leans defense. This team's going to be leaning offense. It's going to have OC and an offensive-minded head coach who was also an offensive coordinator. That's just how it works, right? This roster, offensively, isn't that much different from the roster that was in Seattle. I mean, you look at it, okay, you got Russell Wilson, right? Russell Wilson doesn't use his tight ends, so the tight ends are pointless. I mean, he'll throw to him because, he will, but not often, right? Is the gap between Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton and DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett in their favor? No, it's not. I think DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are the better unit. I think DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are top 15 receivers. Jerry Jeudy, Courtland Sutton, not so much. Kill me. I don't care. Look, the running back room. Are the running backs better? Sure. The running backs are better. I'll give you that. Is the offensive line better? Yeah, but by a lot? I don't think so. I mean, this is so you go from a below average O-line to a kind of average O-line. This isn't an elite offensive line by any stretch of the imagination. Like, this isn't. Oh, so what you're asking me then is, will Nathaniel Hackett coach football with Russell Wilson this season better than Pete Carroll coached football with Russell Wilson the last time Russell Wilson was fully healthy? I don't know. I'm inclined to think no. Because the last time fully healthy, Pete Carroll coached Russell Wilson, they won the postseason. In an equally as tough, if not slightly less tough division in the NFC West at that particular time. The Cardinals weren't that good 2 years ago. But, still a tough division was the NFC West. I think the Broncos are going to be the last in the division. Kill me. I mean, look, this is a division where all the teams are just likely to finish first, or to finish last. So me saying the Broncos are going to finish last isn't blasphemous. What it is it's reality. And the reality of the situation is I would be a fool to just expect, look, I get it, right? With Drew Lock, they won 7 games last season. Okay, so naturally you think, because you plug in a better quarterback, they improve the win total. Sure. If they didn't overhaul the coaching staff. They have the exact same coaching staff. I'd be inclined to agree with the masses. Yeah, they're going to win more games. I think they'll still win more games because they have a better quarterback, but it's not just as cut and dry. I don't think Russell Wilson is at a point in his career now, at this point, where you drop him on a team that's Super Bowl contender. That's just not the case. It's just not. There are 4 quarterbacks in football where any team you put them, let's be realistic. There are 3 quarterbacks in football where anywhere you put them, that team's a Super Bowl contender. Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, Tom Brady. Unfortunately, Aaron Rodgers is not on that list. And whatever. But like, those are the 3 guys. So those are the only 3 guys where I put them on any team that is competent and they instantly become a Super Bowl contender. Like, that's it. Unfortunately, Aaron Rodgers isn't that guy. I think Matt Stafford isn't, but he is close to being that. And so is Aaron Rodgers, right? I think as they continue to get better, Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert will get into that conversation where they will become that good, where no matter where you put them, as long as the team is good, they could be a Super Bowl contender. Russell Wilson's not that guy. That's not an insult. That's the reality of the situation. Like, so to your point earlier about saying, Darren Waller is not on Travis Kelce or George Kittle's level, but he's the 3rd best tight end in football. It's not an insult. It's a fact. He's not on a level like that. There is proof in the pudding. Like, as I said earlier, George Kittle, Travis Kelce is the most consistent tight end in football, and George Kittle is the most all-around tight end in football. Darren Waller is fantastic. but he's not a better run blocker than George Kittle. He's not a better pass blocker than George Kittle. He's not a better run blocker than Travis Kelce or a pass blocker than Travis Kelce. He's not a bigger threat in the open field than either of those two guys. If you had to pick the tight ends, you wouldn't pick him ahead of any of them. In fact, you could make an argument, and there are some people that will make this argument, that there are people that would take Mark Andrews ahead of Darren Waller. I wouldn't do that. But Darren Waller's a second-tier quarterback or tight end, but he's the third best overall. It's not an insult, right? When you're talking about Russell Wilson, I think Russell Wilson's fantastic. He's the first ballot Hall of Famer, right? Back-to-back Super Bowls, won one of them, could have won two of them if it weren't for one of the craziest play calls in the history of football on the 1-yard line in the Super Bowl. But I say all that to say, I think what we have here is a scenario where you've got two teams in the AFC West that are going to be competing for the division crown. I don't see the Raiders or the Broncos winning the division. It's possible, but I just don't see that happening. You've got the other two teams that are going to be competing for third place and a wild card spot. They both have rookie head coaches. The one difference is one team has a better offense, one team has a better defense, but the Raiders' defense isn't that much worse than the Broncos' defense. It's not. I mean, yeah, and I get it, right? This is the number 2 scoring defense in football last season, were the Broncos, and they got young talent all the way around. This is supposed to be the no-fly zone 2.0. I get all of that. But the Raiders have one of the best pass rushers in football. Their secondary is not the best, but it's not too shabby. You mentioned earlier they added Chandler Jones, and that's a really good defense, coupled with a really good offense. The issue becomes the coaching. Do I trust Nathaniel Hackett more than Josh McDaniels? Sure. But do I trust Derek Carr in that offense more than I trust the Broncos offense? Yes, I do, because it's more talented. There's more weapons. The offensive line is better. The wide receiver room is better. The tight end is better. The quarterback isn't that much worse, but he has more weapons surrounding him. And most importantly, you don't really have a lot of injury concerns when it comes to weapons. Like Davante Adams gets turf toe. That's it.
He'll get nicked and miss 2 or 3 games.
Yeah, he'll probably miss 2 or 3 games, but we don't. When we're talking about like Courtland Sutton has been in and out of lineup since he's been in the NFL due to injury, not his fault. I mean, health. Jerry Jeudy hasn't been consistent in Courtland Sutton's absence. I can't just look at the Broncos and say because they improved the quarterback position, they're a Super Bowl contender, and I can't look at all of the changes that they made and say that they're not likely to finish last. I think if I had to rank likelihoods of finishing last, the Broncos would be at the top for me, and then the Raiders, and then the Chiefs, and then the Chargers. I think the one team that is I think the one team that is not in any danger of finishing last in the division is the Chargers. The Chargers either first or second. That's it for me. I could see the Chiefs finishing last. I really could. I don't think they will, but it's not impossible. That defense sucks, dude. Like that, they've got the worst defense in the division, and when you've got 3 other potentially high-powered offenses, yikes! They could give up a lot of points in these divisional games. We're talking 30 plus.
And a point in your favor, on the Chargers versus, or not the Chargers, the Raiders versus Broncos for the final part of the division. Derek Carr, he got a new head coach, but he's really all he has to do is build up chemistry with one new wide receiver, and it's a receiver that he's had chemistry with in the past. Russell Wilson is going to a new place, a new coach is coming in, and he has to build up a rapport with all of his receivers.
Oh, and here's another thing that I'll get laughed at for, I'm sure, but I don't care. We're talking football. This isn't basketball. Some of these people play outside. Here's the thing: playing in Seattle, much different from playing in Denver. Yeah. Altitude's higher, which means it's colder in Denver than it is in Seattle. Sure, it might not rain as much, but it's damn sure gonna snow in Denver. That's for sure. Like those things matter. And I get it. Russell Wilson's been playing outside his entire career because he's been in Seattle, but it's different. It's not the same. It's really not. Like there are small differences. Like I don't care how many times Russell Wilson says the Broncos country let's ride this all season. I think at this point it's up to about 50 because he says it all the time. It's either a hashtag or a caption or a video. He said it since he's been there. And look, he's been doing great. He's gone to Rockies games and he's gone to Avalanche games and he was there to watch them win the Stanley Cup. Fantastic. Show your face. Get there, right? There's whatever. Okay. It's like there's a lot changing for Russell Wilson. The one massive change, the one major change really for Derek Carr is, I have this new head coach that is from the Bill Belichick coaching tree that while he didn't do that good his last time he coached, he's gone back and he's actually gotten better as an offensive coordinator since leaving Detroit to go back to New England. I like my chances with Derek Carr and loss and if I were I am, but if I were to take a bet on who's going to finish last, I'd put my money on the Broncos.
I think at least in my head, I think it's between these two. I really do. I made a bet with you know Squabo, obviously. I made a bet with Squabo.
Was it another steak bet? He's always
a steak bet. Yeah. It's a steak bet. Yeah. It's a 2-1 steak bet. If the Chiefs finish first, he owes me 2 steaks. If they finish anywhere else, I owe him 1. I feel pretty confident about the Chiefs finishing at least second place. I think that it's going to be.
If the Chiefs finish first, he owes you 2 steaks.
He owes me 2.
And if the Chiefs finish what first,
and
he owes 1 steak.
I owe him 1.
Interesting.
Yeah. No, I feel pretty confident about it. I feel pretty confident.
We got a 75% chance of winning this bet here.
Here's exactly. No, I truly feel that I think it's really the division is between the Chargers and the Chiefs. I really do. I think that here's
the thing. I'm inclined to disagree with you. I think the division's between the Chargers and the Raiders. The only 2 teams in the division got better, like glaringly better. Like with okay, the Chiefs got worse. They're the only team in the division that just got worse. Like they didn't improve anything. They lost their best defensive player. They lost who many people believe is a top 10 wide receiver. I don't think he is, but they lost Tyreek Hill. Right? Yeah, okay. You bring in Juju, you bring in MVS, but your defense stinks. Like you're gonna have to put up a lot of points, which they do. But I don't know how many shootouts they'll win. They've got Andy Reid and fantastic top 5 coach in the league. Honestly, though, I'm being so honest. I honestly believe it's between the Chargers and the Raiders. I wouldn't be shocked if the Chiefs finish third. Not because they'll be bad, but because I think it just comes to a point where they're going to have, like I said earlier, the worst division. They're going to have the worst defense in the division. They're going to be giving up a lot of points. Not just in their division, but like in football. They're going to give up a lot of points. And we've seen Pat Mahomes do some spectacular things, and we've seen him do some wonderful things down the stretch of tight football games, right? Leading an entire winning drive in 13 seconds, phenomenal. I don't know. Like, Sky Moore could be fantastic. And look, Juju Smith-Schuster, cool dude. He has recorded one 1,000-yard game or season. I'm sorry, no, he's recorded 1 game of 100 yards plus, or maybe it's 2 since Antonio Brown left Pittsburgh. That's not promising to me. I love Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I don't think he's going to be their number 1 wide receiver. And Sky Moore's a rookie, and I think they're going to. And of course, you got Mecole Hardman. Like they've got weapons. I don't know. I think if Josh McDaniels can just take the offense he had in New England and implement it here, you've got a scary situation in Las Vegas. And the Chargers, I think, are the best team in the division. I honestly think it's between the Chargers and the Raiders. If we're being realistic, the Chiefs will probably have the better record than the Raiders. But just looking at it right now, given the obstacles, like there's a lot of ifs in Kansas City right now. There's really only one if, and it's a massive one. It's the head coaching. But as the season wanes on, I don't think it's that, especially when you've got 4 games against what I think is the worst division in football in the AFC South. You've got, there's hope. There's a lot of games where the Raiders will be in it, and it'll come down to, forget the coaching, it'll come down to the quarterback play. And that is, again, why I think that Derek Carr's top 10, because he might not be the best guy walking onto the field at the position, but he's going to fight until the very end and make sure his team is in it, and he's not going to put you in a position. Derek Carr is never going to be the reason why the Raiders lose a game this season. He just won't. We don't see Derek Carr play really bad football on that level. It just doesn't happen. So, yeah, I think it's possible. It's not. I'm not going to bet on it, but I think we're looking at a situation where maybe it's between the Chargers and the Raiders, and not the Chargers and the Chiefs. I do think the Chargers are going to win the division, though. That I do think. I would bet on that. I think I might bet on that, actually. I've been looking at futures. I might just do that. Who knows? But yeah, listen. Real quick though, how many games do you think the Chargers are going to win, or the Raiders are going to win this season?
I have them 9-8. I think they'll split with Denver. And I think that they could potentially split with Kansas City. But win wise, I have them beating Tennessee. I have them beating Denver the first time they play them. I have them beating Houston. I have them beating New Orleans, Jacksonville, and Indianapolis. I have them beating Seattle, Pittsburgh, and then that San Francisco game, I think, is what would push them either keep them at 9 or push them potentially up to 10. But I think it's going to be tough for them to try to survive this, especially with how loaded the AFC is in general. Again, I already said I think they're going to finish last in the division. 9-8 is not a horrible record to finish last in the division.
It's not. I mean, this is a scenario, and I think it's so hard because in the beginning I was like, oh, well, you got the Chargers, they'll probably go double digits, and then the Chiefs will probably go double digits, and then it's really it's going to be tough for just one of these teams to get double digits. It's going to take division dominance for that to happen. I don't see anyone sweeping the division because, Kansas City struggles against LA. LA struggles in Denver specifically. And then Denver and Las Vegas games are always a toss-up. So I don't think anyone's going to dominate the division. I think at most we'll see a team win 4 games. I think the Chiefs win 4 or the Chargers win 4 games in the division. I have the Raiders going 3-3 in the division. I think they'll just split all of them. I have the Raiders at 10-7. And I think they'll be 3rd in the division. I think they'll make the playoffs as 3rd in the division. Here's the thing. I think the Broncos will be 9-8. I think they'll make the playoffs too. This is a really good division. And here's the thing. Once you get past once you get past the Bills, the Bengals, and the Colts, I think those are going to be the 3 other division winners. Now you got the Chargers. Are the Chiefs going to make the playoffs? Sure, that's 5. I like the Raiders' chances against when you're talking about. I think they'll be better than the Titans. I think you obviously have to look at the Raiders as a team to be on the lookout for, right? And of course the Patriots as well. It's going to be, I think, between those 3 teams on who gets the last 2 spots: the Patriots, the Ravens, and the Raiders. I think the Ravens will make the playoffs, not as a division winner, but they'll make the playoffs, and I think the Raiders make the playoffs. I wouldn't, and I've been saying it all season, and people just jumped down my throat. I wouldn't be shocked if the Broncos missed the playoffs this season. There's so much going on. Like, let's be serious. Like, there's so much change going on in the Broncos that it's going to take a second. It's going to take. And even if they get a fast start, at some point, they're going to hit a rough patch because it's inevitable. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy for being realistic. I don't know.
No, I don't think so. I think you look at that and everyone wants to compare, hey, everyone getting a new quarterback to, what we've seen in the past 2 seasons with Tom Brady and Matthew Stafford. But if you look,
not the same.
They both went in, especially Matthew Stafford. He went into a built system where all he had to do was come in and be better than Jared Goff. And like, it's a team who made the Super Bowl with Jared Goff.
Yep.
And they were stacked on offense. They had Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods. Obviously, they wound up bringing in Odell Beckham Jr. Van Jefferson is a very solid 4th receiver. That if Van Jefferson's your 4, you're set up pretty well.
Really good.
They came in with a fantastic run game. You look at obviously what Tom Brady brought to the table in Tampa Bay, and but he came in and weapons on weapons on weapons.
Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were the 6th seed in the NFC that season.
Exactly.
They got spanked by the Saints both times in the regular season, and I think they only won 9 games that season. So for me to sit here and say that the Broncos are going to go 9-8 and possibly miss the playoffs isn't crazy when this conference as a whole is so much more competitive than the NFC was 2 years ago when Brady did it, or last year when the Rams did it. But sports Twitter for you. So I'll just save my takes for the show at this point because apparently you can't get too realistic on Twitter without being told you're about being ratioed or whatever the kids are saying these days. Anyway, thank you for coming on the show as always. Please let everybody know where they can find you and all your content.
On Instagram and Twitter at Emmitt Sevores, and then on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at the C Team Pod. We'll be, we're doing our own little off-season thing. We haven't done it for a while, but I'm going back to college here in a couple of weeks, and so I'm going to have a lot of free time before my classes start, and I'm going to be grinding out episode after episode after episode. And you know what? We might see Marcus making an appearance when we're talking about our Packer. We're doing power rankings. We're revealing them bottom to top, doing all of our team reviews. I think it's going to be very interesting. The Packers are they're not as high up as I originally thought I would have them, but they're still in that top 10. That's just a little teaser for you.
You know what's so absurd to me? I just saw this on Twitter, and I just thought I need to share this real quick. It is insane to me. It is unbelievable to me that the NFC East is the only division in football where all 4 teams have won a Super Bowl, and they stink.
Yeah, it's
also the only division if you they've got double-digit Super Bowl wins by as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at it, because I mean, yeah, I think I got to be honest. I think the other 3 teams in the division would take that back if it meant the Eagles didn't have one. I feel very comfortable. My dad's a Cowboy fan, and so he hates the Eagles. He hates them. It's just that division it's terrible. I think people forget, and by people forget, I mean people like me who didn't live through it, forget how dominant that division was for a long stretch in football.
Oh yeah.
People always talk about in the 90s the fact that the Bills went to 4 straight Super Bowls, but they'll never talk about
twice to the Cowboys, and they lost to Washington, one of them. I can't remember who beat
and then they lost to the Giants in the other one.
Oh, that's
they lost to the Giants in the I think the Giants, I think they won 2, I think, because I think they have 4 if I'm not mistaken. I think the Giants have 4. I think they won 2 in like the 80s and 90s, and then I think Washington, I think they won there in the 80s if I'm not mistaken. Dallas won theirs
in the 90s with the triplets.
They won 3 of theirs in the 90s, and they won 2 in the early 60s.
And it ain't been back since. Listen, real quick before we go, I just want to say, look, I've got a lot of friends and family that are Cowboys fans that just can't wait for this Cowboys episode to drop on the 1st, which is Monday. I just want you guys to know that while you are probably just know that you're gonna be shocked. I don't want to say too much, but just know that you're gonna be shocked with the things I have to say about the Dallas Cowboys. So stop jumping down my throat and maybe just wait for the episode to drop. Okay, let's be serious. Let's just wait for the episode to
drop. They shouldn't be jumping down your throat anyway. You've been defending Dak Prescott.
I've been defending Dak for almost 2 months now. I shouldn't be getting any slack. No, but seriously, I get people, when's the Cowboys? Listen, it's coming August 1st, and I just think you should relax, because the things I have nice things to say about the Cowboys. I do.
There we go.
I do, and I think you should relax. So, with that being said, for Emmitt Sevores of the C Team Pod and the Boelt with my guy Squabo and Steezy, who's gone Hollywood on me and won't return my text messages, but it's whatever. This is Marcus of Go Talking Marcus signing off. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, you guys are the rest of your lives. And remember, next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live on YouTube. 2 years ago, talk. We're going to sit on here and talk about stuff. I don't know what the stuff is yet, but there is stuff to talk about, and we're going to talk about it. So you should be there. So yeah. And also subscribe to the channel, damn it. Like, what are you doing? Subscribe. 70% of you guys watch the show and you don't subscribe. I appreciate you guys that watch it, but just subscribe to the channel. It takes 3 seconds. You just press the button. It's really simple. Whatever. I can't make you do anything, but you should. You should.